Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Simon Miller, and yes, this is a pro wrestling podcast. You join me on, what day is it today? It's Friday the 19th of October. I'm sat here, I was about to say sunny England. It's not sunny England at all. Anyway, the reason I'm doing this big preamble about where I am is because from thousands of miles away, I'm going to assume you're in Australia, Brad, is my man Brad. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
Whereabouts in Australia are we talking?
So I am in Brisbane, Queensland.
Man,
so the one of the hottest parts of the country.
Did you go? This is the bizarre way to start. Did you go to Super Showdown? I mean, it's not close at all, is it? But I was going to say this.
Look, that was down in Melbourne, and I had I had that moment where I went, I'm just going to check and see, and looked at the prices and went, oh, on top of airfare and hotel, it's like, no, I'm not paying that.
how much were tickets? Because that's not really something that ever bleeds out anymore. I mean, people like Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer will talk about it, but you know, I know for a fact because attendances are down that WWE's hiked the prices up, but it's not really anyone ever actually have a conversation with. So, yeah, what were we talking? $100?
So yeah, I think minimum was about 120, and that was at I think that was the MCG. And that's a big old stadium. I think that Liverpool came to play and they played there, I think, and they broke the international record, had 100,000 people. So it's a big stadium. Yeah. And, $120 and you're miles away. You may as well be watching it on a screen in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Upwards of, I remember seeing something for 1,000. That may have been ringside.
Is that Australian dollars as well?
Yeah, that's Australian.
Isn't that crazy money?
So I think the exchange rate, to the US is, I think we're at 62 cents, and then to the UK we normally are about 45 cents to the pound, so it's a lot of money.
That is. I've just looked it up. It's so much money. I'm not even going to say it out loud. Everyone just go type that into Google. You'll keel over and die. I'm not surprised you didn't want to go. It wasn't worth it. I tell you right now, if you had have gone, you would have made a terrible mistake.
Well, and Melbourne's expensive just to get there, and if you're going to have a hotel or anything and to eat, it's an expensive place. So, probably double whatever you're paying. In tickets easily.
Obviously, this isn't what we're going to talk about, but I'm just intrigued because obviously the area. Is it going to benefit Melbourne? Are they going to see an influx? I mean, not tourism necessarily, but will the economy get a boost from it? Or is it because what I heard, and I don't know how true this is. It was a headline. I didn't really investigate. It sounded like Melbourne reached out to WWE and said, "Look, can you come over and put on a big show, please? We'd really like to showcase this."
Yeah, that'd make sense. Look, I don't know how big a deal for the tourism that it's going to be. I mean, Melbourne, normally when people come to Australia, they're either going to Melbourne for it's kind of the cultural hub. You'll go to Sydney because of Bondi and the Opera House and things like that. Or if you're smart, you come to Queensland because we've got all the best places. But I don't know.
No, I'm just intrigued.
How big of an impact. But I'm it's definitely good for the indie scene, which is really starting to take off here.
Right, that is the perfect segue.
So I think that's kind of the big plus of having Super Showdown. Oh, I'm really impressed. I remember what it was called. Having Super Showdown here, I think it's kind of shines that spotlight on the indie scene.
Okay, well, that's the perfect segue into what we are going to talk about, because, as always, when you come on Simon's Pro Wrestling Podcast, you can do that by going to patreon.com/Simon316. We always have a little conversation with the people before they come on. Brad and I had a little chat, and Brad said to me some magical words, which was, I don't watch WWE anymore. And he said it with a tone in his voice like, fuck those guys. so straight away, I was like, this is brilliant. Now, obviously, though, it's not because your passion for wrestling has lapsed, because you just mentioned the burgeoning indie scene in Australia, and I've kind of got a good feeling from that from guys that have come over here. I know it's different, but obviously Will Ospreay shining a light on New Zealand, and that kind of didn't really tie in, but it was people started looking in that direction, like, oh, okay. And obviously you've got the I can't remember the team in NXT, but the Australian guys in NXT who I've just forgotten the name of.
The Iconics.
Thank you. Yeah.
No.
The dudes, the man tag team. I can't remember.
Oh, see, here we go. I'm not going to know because I haven't watched NXT for ages.
Well, this is good. So let's start there. Let's start positively, as we always do. Obviously, let me rephrase this. Obviously, I want to talk about the Australian indie scene because it's too good an opportunity not to. But in terms of the more common stuff people watch, do you watch Ring of Honor? Do you watch New Japan? Do you watch Impact? I mean, I doubt you do. Nobody does. I love Impact, but just nobody watches it. Like, where, in terms of the big companies, obviously WWE's off the table, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But where do you go? Or do you not go there at all? Are they all dead? Are they all gone?
Yeah, no. Look, up until this point, I've only watched WWE.
Yeah.
I've watched the key matches from Japan, and I think TNA used to be on TV here.
I was really hoping you were going to say I think TNA used to be good.
Once. Oh no, it was never good. I watched it once, and it was just awful. Just awful. And that's where I first saw AJ Styles, and
right.
I did not like him.
Wait, well, dude, I mean, I love it. But you do realise you just caused me hell for at least a week in my life. All right, look, we got to do this bit by bit because we've got to start there. I've never heard anybody say those words. Now, I respect the hell out of you for not respect, because it makes my life much more interesting anyway. Tell me why. I mean, do you like him now, or is it like a blanket? Nah, this guy's not for me.
Oh, look. Yeah, I don't want to be. I don't want to come across as overly harsh. Like,
no, do it, dude. It's good radio content.
I respect that he is a very good wrestler. Technically, definitely up there. I just find him really boring. I don't like the goody two shoes characters. And he's never won me over with his talking. So yeah, I just find him a bit bland.
No, do you know what, dude? Like, while I wouldn't necessarily agree, I actually know where you're coming from. Do you know what I mean? That AJ Styles has always been a guy that has prided himself on his work, right? And outside of that, again, before he came to WWE, there's a big criticism. It's like, how will AJ Styles, balance in those waters when character and promo work is so important? Now, I think he's gotten a lot better, and I do think he's the overall package now, but I certainly can understand why somebody would have that criticism. Just for, like I say, a bit of back and forth, who would you say, and again, there's no actual reason, but just the top name, the first name that comes to your head, who is your favourite wrestler of all time, or somebody that is like the antithesis to AJ Styles?
Oh, I don't know if antithesis. My favourite of all time is William Regal.
Oh, dude, this is great. These are no one ever says these answers. It makes it so much better.
Well, no. I think the last guest you had on listed him in his top 5, and I'm like, stealing my thunder. No one ever likes William Regal.
No one will top that. We dropped a Fit Finlay in there, so we're never gonna. Yeah. Because I love William Regal too. I literally did a list today for What Culture, where every time I mention his name, I always throw in the always underappreciated William Regal, because he was. Now, I'm biased because I'm British, and he was a trailblazer in the sense that he got to WWE and WCW before that was even a thing for British guys, or en masse anyway. But it's because I wouldn't say this at all. I will play devil's advocate here, and I will take on the role of what I have heard in the past, and I disagree with it with all the power of my being. But some people would also say that William Regal falls into that AJ Styles character of being a bit bland. Again, I disagree. But why William Regal and why not AJ Styles?
Because he always cheated, and it made me laugh.
And it was the way he cheated as well. If you actually go back and watch William Regal matches now, not only is he incredibly technical, but he's always entertaining. He's always doing something absolutely ridiculous where you're like, what is he doing? But because he pulls it off so well, and because I think, he kind of prided himself on, as he's always said, reading the audience and changing it up to see fit. Again, he never does anything that's not enjoyable to watch.
Yes. And like I said, I think he must have been one of the first wrestlers that I ever saw Look, I'm just going to go into how I got into wrestling.
Do it,
because we're going to go there.
We're getting there anyway, so you may as well throw it in.
So to get wrestling over here, you had to pay for the Foxtel subscription. Like, I'm pretty sure that was the only way to ever see it. So I never had that, but I had a mate who was bang into wrestling in school. The kind of guy that's pulling off wrestling moves in the backyard and telling you all the stories, and you're just nodding along going, I have no idea what this guy's on about, but he's really excited about it.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And so going round to his place once a week, and he'd throw on, I think it must have been before there were 2 shows.
Okay, so
whatever that,
way back in the day.
I'm think like it would have been about 1998, 99. Yeah.
So just before SmackDown arrives.
Okay, yeah. I've got no idea about the history. It all just passes me by because I've been in and out so often that it all melds into one.
And also, you don't need to remember all those stats. I know some people go, I can't believe that. I mean, you've got more important things in your life than to remember what year SmackDown started to air. So I don't agree with all that stuff. I think it makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, so yeah, went round his place, and he'd throw on this show and start telling me about this wrestler and that wrestler. And I think the very first thing that, I said to him is like, well, this clearly isn't real. And I think I destroyed his world.
Oh, he didn't know. Oh, dude, you're like the dad in Father Christmas.
No, he did not know. And I'm pretty sure it must have been Kane. Kane came out and did the ring entrance. The fire explodes. And I'm like, mate, like, it's clearly not real. He doesn't have magical powers.
I like he even wasn't sure with Kane. He was like, well, maybe they just got a burned guy to wrestle. Why not? Why not? Burn victims deserve jobs. Why can't he be a wrestler? Brilliant.
So, but that was the thing. Kane came out, and I'm like, well, this makes sense all of a sudden. Like, this guy is fun. The flames, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what I originally kind of clicked with the wrestling was, these larger than life characters. The technical wrestlers, I probably just passed me by. I didn't really notice, how good someone was. It was how entertaining they were. And Kane was definitely on the top of that list. Clearly Undertaker was up there. And then I saw William Regal, and, he cheats to win. And then the next time I watch it, he's cheated again. Third time I watch it, he's cheated again. Well, this is brilliant.
It's funny.
If no one's going to call you up on it, why wouldn't you just cheat all the time and win everything?
And I never think about that because obviously now, we've talked about this loads of times in this podcast, when you look at wrestling through adult eyes, you forget all of that stuff, and we groan and we roll our eyes and we're like, oh, it's a bunch of rubbish. But it's true. When you first get into it, and it is being presented as a sport, even though clearly it's a pile of nonsense, when you do see someone that just breaks the rules so willingly and no one cares, that is funny. That is entertaining because you're like, why is this, why is there no repercussions for this? Why is there no consequences? Why do we get to next week on the show?
You're literally recording absolutely everything that happens on the stage, backstage. Like, why doesn't someone just go back through the tape and it's like, well, this guy's cheating all the time. Maybe we should suspend him. It's That ties into I'm happy with that stuff.
Exactly. That ties into my favorite thing about wrestling. That is, you have beef with somebody, you will not talk to them until a week has gone by and you're back on Raw. You will literally get 7 days to think about things, and then on Raw you'll go, look, man, I can't believe you did that. You're like, dude, I literally have been in a car with you for 7 days. We could have had this conversation. But that's the dumbness of wrestling, and that's why it's so good. Well, I like that, and I'm glad that William Regal fits into that circle for you, because I would totally agree. I do think he's within that sphere of characters, because it was dumb, but he knew he was dumb and he played up to it. I mean, even when he was general manager and he had people weeing in his tea, which admittedly is a terrible story, but he still embraced it, and I think that's the key. So you mentioned you've been in and out a lot. When did the first cull come? Why did you go back? And let's get I mean, I want to talk about all the Australian stuff because I think it's really interesting. But how did we get to now where WWE is the dearth of society? Just to exaggerate massively.
So I think I would have watched it, on and off for a couple of years, just going to my mate's place, and then I kind of lost touch with him, and thus didn't have anywhere to go watch wrestling, and so continued on with my life. And then maybe trying to think, it was probably about 2 years before my daughter was born. Hang on, I'm doing the math in my head now. So that's going to be probably about 2006, I would say. I started watching it again because I, paid so that I could watch the football. Because once again, that's the only way that you can see all the football over here is to pay the subscription.
Sounds like the UK.
Yeah.
It's the one big rip-off.
Yep. And so SmackDown and Raw come along with that package. So I started watching again. And then when my daughter was born, plenty of late nights. And it's like, well, I'll, record the shows and I'll watch that when I'm up late.
Yeah.
And so I remember the whole Edge Cena feud. Someone gets thrown into a river at one stage.
I remember that, yeah. Of course, that always happens in wrestling feuds. People get chucked in. It makes no sense. Chuck him in a river. Why? I don't know. Just do it.
Yeah. So I remember all that, and kind of liked the Edge character there. I think up until that point, I didn't think much of him, but I really liked that whole obsessive lunatic.
Yeah.
Persona that he took on, and I think I gravitate more towards the heels. I like the guys that are going to do anything, no matter how bad it is, to win the match.
Yeah, I think especially given the way you've been approaching wrestling, the heels have more fun, right? The heels have more personality, more characterization.
They get to crush people with cars and all that mad stuff that I feel you don't see as much these days.
It's funny you said that. What did I watch the other day? I watched something the other day. Maybe it was the beginning of the SmackDown 1000 intro, which you wouldn't have seen. But they showed all the clips of Stone Cold dropping the giant bit of concrete or whatever it was onto the DX bus, and I was like, man, we had a big budget back then to do stupid stuff, didn't we? We don't do that anymore. Okay, so you come and go because of life and other reasons like that. Why do we draw a line under WWE? And when as well? I need to know when this happened. Okay, it all ties in.
So I pulled the plug on the Foxtel about a year ago now, and that was really just linked to the football. It went to another channel, so flick them, pay for that, and so the WWE had to go, but I hadn't properly watched anything for probably 6 months leading up to that.
Right, so you were out.
I just I used to watch pretty much all of SmackDown, and I'd do a lot of fast forwarding through Raw, and it just got to the point where I looked at the list of shows in my recording, and I've backlogged like 8-9 weeks. And it's like, I can't be bothered going back through all of that.
Yeah.
And so I just read up on what happened. It's like, and a lot of the times it just felt like, well, I didn't really need to watch those shows. I could just read a paragraph, and it all kind of made didn't really go much further than what I expected it to.
Yeah.
I think largely I just kind of got bored of the storylines. I think the same people just being used again and again. I think you were talking about, the Shield fighting the Hounds?
Oh, the Dogs of War.
The
Braun
Dogs
Strowman,
of War, yeah.
Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler, the most boring feud in the history of feuds.
And so, I keep up, I watch ups and downs and things like that. So I'm still, I still see what's going on there, and And it's like, well, they're fighting them again. And it's like, oh, and now they're doing singles matches. And now they're doing a tag team again and do a couple more singles. And it's like, just like there's all these other guys that could be doing something and you're not giving them time. It drove me mad.
It wasn't until after Raw, you just hit the nail on the head there, I didn't actually realise, because I kind of take it segment by segment. It's only really after the show when I sit back and go, oh man, and it kind of hits you. Like all the time, like SmackDown, for example, it was only after I'd done everything. I went, oh, Samoa Joe wasn't on the show. It is weird how you miss that stuff. And I didn't realise that on Raw, you're 100% right. Not only did we main event with that 6-man tag again, but 3/4 of the show was those two just fighting each other. Because we had Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. And you're like, that's a preposterous amount of time to take up with just 6 guys. When, like you say, you've got a 3-hour show and a load of other people on the roster that just aren't being used at all. I also think it falls into I only mentioned this because we've talked about this on here before. I do think it falls into the fact that Raw especially has become very much, it sounds a bit silly, but it has become very much a TV program. In the sense that, at the top of the hour, there'll be a commercial break. You can kind of call it before it even begins. It is a lot more structured than it used to be. And I understand why 2018, stock market, shareholders, the list goes on and on. But again, I think the 3-hour thing sums it up the best. Just because you're making good business decisions doesn't necessarily mean it makes for a more entertaining product.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, if you're going to do 3 hours, I think there are ways to make that work better than it has been.
Oh, I think so.
Because as I said, I just it all felt like I was just seeing the same match again and again, and kind of the same storyline again and again, and that's 3 hours a week. That's I got a lot of other things to do.
Yeah, well, especially in this day and age, like, cheap pimp, but we do the gaming podcast once a week, which Brad has already said he's coming on, so I look forward to that in the future. But you can go listen to it now. It's called The Week in Gaming. But, we mentioned it on there. Time is precious the older you get. You soon start to realise that actually you only have, it's like, your currency. You only have a certain amount to give away, and you have to be quite meticulous in what you choose to do, which is why today, if a game's over 10 hours, I kind of rear my head a bit, like, I don't want to give 10 hours to a video game. But if something is now sort of, below 10 hours, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll be a bit more interested. Obviously, something like Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to win me over anyway because of my nostalgia for the first game and so on and so forth. But it is the same with wrestling, because even if you just take Raw and SmackDown, that's 5 hours of your life. Like, that's...
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, especially if you're working a 9 to 5 and you've got a family and you've got kids, like you've said. Trying to find 5 hours in the day... it is difficult. And if you want to throw in WNXT UK, that's 6. Normal NXT, that's 7. Mixed match challenge, say 7.5. 205 Live, that's 8.5. Let's throw in a pay-per-view. We're over 10 hours. 10 hours a week is an incredible amount of time to ask for anything, especially when, as you have quite rightfully said, on occasion, WWE does tend to go into their rebooking. We'll just book week to week and kind of forget what we did the previous week and what we want to do next week. And the shows can start to feel the same. So I understand it. I can understand why you have finally walked away. And I also don't think you're alone, because you mentioned you watch stuff like the YouTube clips, or you read paragraphs online, or just social media in general, which is going to continue to pimp out GIFs and videos. I think a lot of people, especially around... say you did get in around that late 90s time or mid 90s time, I think a lot of people who have kind of grown up with that boom in social media and the internet in general are now just happy to consume a lot of content that way, which is why, the viewers do continue. I don't think it's the only reason, but I think it's a massive reason about why viewership is not what it once was.
Yeah, well, I've definitely found that just catching up, watching the, a couple of clips of the people that I'm interested in is enough to get me by. Like I've been following Becky Lynch's run at the moment. Talking to Edge, don't hurt your neck. That made me laugh.
That was
brutal.
Lines like that are few and far between, and I went a bit meta with it, because the first thing I thought, fair play Becky Lynch for delivering like that kind of absolute hero, but also fair play to Edge for actually agreeing to that line. You could understand him being a bit precious about it, right? I don't think anybody would have held that against him. It ended his career, and I'm sure he's
It's it's not a fun thing that happened to him, but
no. But the fact
he clearly gets it.
Yeah,
like
100%.
he knows, like it sucks, and that's the way it happened. But if he's going to be there on the show, well, this is what he's going to do to help get Becky. Well, get her over, but I'm still not sure it's working the way that they want it to.
I think that line was designed to get booed. It did not get booed. It got it was too cool, though. It's too cool a line. Like, in this day and age especially, if you're going to deliver a line that is that badass, everyone's going to think you're a badass. Because it's just
and that's the thing with Becky as well, is that like the way she delivers her lines, like everything she says has that cool edge to it. Oh man, I've made a terrible pun there.
No, I liked it. I was about to give you a round of applause. I was like, oh, look at that, he's tying it all in.
But that's the thing. It's like even her general demeanor, like I don't see how you can treat her as a dastardly heel, because she's just not that naturally. She's got too much charisma. She's too nice as well. Like, I know that she's quote unquote the bad guy now, but we saw what she was like beforehand. I've said this before, totally non-creepy way. If you follow her on social media, she's very funny on social media, like very tongue-in-cheek and, silly and that stuff. Like when she was trying to open that can, I can't remember what can it was now, but, it went big on Reddit and it was funny because she made it funny. Like even the post she did a few weeks ago on Twitter, when she said to Charlotte, "That's for making me drink all that tea," which was a direct quote from all that stuff they've been doing on. She just, you said it, but with Edge, and it's the same with Becky. She just gets it, and I think when someone gets it in 2018, when you have a very smart audience that knows what's going on, it's very difficult to make them into the bad guy. My only worry with what's happening with Becky Lynch at the moment is, I've said this and I'll say it again, I don't mind all the stuff that's happened with Roman Reigns. I actually find it quite fascinating. But if they now dig their heels in on SmackDown as well, which means they haven't learned anything from the Roman Reigns stuff, that to me, it won't bother me in the long term, but just as a conversation right now, it's a bit silly. That's all I'll say. It's a bit silly. Like we don't. Come on. I get why you don't want to do it with Roman because you've got so much invested in him. You could absolutely do it with Becky Lynch. She's money. She's gold. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't see the sense. Like, when you're getting that reaction, like, surely you just go with it. And, like, if you have to turn Charlotte heel, I don't see the downside to that anyway. Like, we know she's a good heel. We know the crowds are ready to boo. And if you're planning to send her up against Ronda later on, well, you've got your heel, you've got your face.
Yeah.
Like, so it, there's no issue there. The only thing I can think is, if that is the plan, do they want some type of, respect build up where we've got two faces just trying to prove, who's the best, and either we get a heel turn at the end of the match, or, it makes no sense to me why you don't just go with what the crowd's saying and, just switch those roles. It's such a simple solution, and I don't see the downside to it.
No, I don't. I mean, that is look, again, I'm, as we all know, if you watch my stuff, I like wrestling. I enjoy it in my own special way. But I do think one thing WWE needs to do more, or at least return to, is when they would be very, very in tune with what the crowd was doing, and they didn't kind of fear it. Like it happened with Bret Hart and Lex Luger. Obviously, it happened with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because everyone forgets, it's revisionist history that Stone Cold Steve Austin cut that promo and he came out the next day and was, it wasn't. It was certainly gathering momentum, but that was 1996, and obviously he wasn't winning world titles till 1998. So, again, it doesn't work that way. So I would say I would like them to be more reactive to that kind of stuff. I just think it would be more fun. And also I think, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I would imagine from a writer's point of view, that'd be quite fun to have that kind of, oh, wait, we've got to change plans for Becky Lynch. She's getting a different response. Especially when like you say, Charlotte's already a heel. She's a great heel. When she was a proper heel last time, it was the best she's ever been, I thought. So.
Oh, she's a much better heel than she is a face. I loved her as a heel. As a face, once again, I just find her a bit, wishy-washy. It's like, well, you're a good wrestler, but like, there's no excitement to want to get behind her and urge her on to win. Whereas when she's a heel, it's like, oh, go for it.
Yeah, but how on earth how do you get sympathy for her? She's like an athletic, talented, good. Like, it's like Roman Reigns, right? She's the opposite of Roman Reigns. Why am I going? I'm not going to feel sympathy for you. On paper, on the surface, you've got everything. Of course, I'm gonna hate you as long as you build it up and push all my buttons. It's like The Miz, right? Like Randy Orton. Some people just have something built into them. Like, man, I hope somebody kicks your ass. And I mean that in a positive way. It's not something you can just do. You've got to have it within you, and also you've got to know how to turn it up to 11. So I agree with you in that sense, and I understand why that does get a bit frustrating. So. Obviously, we wrote Impact off. We're not watching Impact. You kind of mentioned that you've watched the Japan stuff that I think everybody goes out to watch because you can't help it these days, can you? You get so excited about it. So I've got to see that match then.
Yeah, just the typical Okada matches, you know,
yeah,
the ones that everyone blows up about. It's like, all right, I better watch this.
Yeah, I think you have to as well. Like, I think I saw a few people go, well, actually, I didn't think it was all that, and they get lambasted for it. I don't agree. Like, wrestling's subjective, and I actually think that it's good we all do go and check out this stuff because that way you can have an opinion on it. That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about.
I was really disappointed because I went to Japan last year.
Yeah, and
I was, I think, 3 days removed from going to see one of their shows.
It's the worst, man. It's the
worst.
Wow. So close.
Well, next time.
The way they're going, man, they'll probably come to Australia. They're trying to expand like crazy people. So you may get to catch them that way. So is there another company you watch, or is it all pretty much independent promotions now?
That's basically it now. And that's why I'm kind of, you know, shifting my focus to, you know, going and seeing the local talent and
let's shift
and seeing whether that gives me that kind of that same feeling that I had, you know, when I first started watching, and you know, you have that you know, a closer connection to some pretty weird and wacky wrestlers.
So, I mean, there's two other things I do want to talk about WWE wise, but we'll finish off with that. I want to talk about it. So, give me the lay of the Australian indie scene. Obviously, we know how big it is in America. Everyone keeps going on about the British scene to the point we now have NXT UK started this week. I thought it was a pretty good show. I enjoyed it. I don't know what kind of viewership it's going to get, again, for the reasons we've already talked about, but I'm happy that it's on television. And obviously, we know a lot more about Australian wrestlers because over the last few years, they've become more prominent. Iconics, Buddy Murphy, the tag team on NXT, I can't remember, but that's my problem. That's just my issue. I'm sure some people are shouting at their audio devices right now. Who's big in the Australian scene? Who do you think is going to make their way over? And just in general, like, is it popular? Is it exciting? Are there lots of events you can go to? Because obviously, this is a stupid thing to say, but Australia is massive. Like, how do you keep up with how do you keep up with, that sounds like a silly thing to say in the social media world, but, you know, even in the UK, which is tiny, I don't know every wrestler, and even across the board, like, I'll be the first to say, when I went to All In, that was my first exposure to Marco Stunt, because you cannot keep up with everybody, but now, obviously, since then, he's done, you know, his momentum's grown quite significantly. So, yeah, like, basically just give me the layman's guide to Australian professional wrestling.
Well, I wish I could, but I'm very, very new to it. So I'm currently waiting for. So in Queensland, we've got AWA wrestling.
I know about that. I don't know why.
And you probably know that one because of Adam Brooks.
Oh, well, that is exactly how I know it then, right? Okay.
And I think Will Ospreay has done shows with them as well.
I would guess he has. Will Ospreay just seems to want to work everywhere, which I respect massively, but I don't know how he keeps it up.
No, I'm pretty sure he was on a show. I'm trying to think, would have been a couple of months ago. I'm sure I saw him.
I'm looking it up.
Hang on. Yeah, so am I.
All right. Okay. Well, you beat me to it. Yeah, I think he is there. I've got something that. I think I don't know. It's very oddly. Let's just say he was. He's there. Yeah. He went to us. I mean,
he could have been in Melbourne though. That might be it. He could have been at one of the Melbourne shows.
Right. Okay.
Because essentially, you know, just like anywhere else, there's a number of different wrestling shows. Mostly in Melbourne, which is, I think, part of the reason why, you know, WWE is going to go to Melbourne.
Yeah.
But yeah, here in Queensland, we've got AWA. They've got a show coming up in December, Final Destination, and they've just announced that they're going to have the championship match, Adam Brooks versus Jake Nova. So that's going to be my chance to see Adam Brooks in the flesh.
Yeah.
But their buy tickets is still waiting to be updated, so I'm clicking every day, just because I've already showed my wife. I'm like, we're going to this. She's like, yep, that sounds fun.
Oh hell yeah, man!
So,
I mean, I was lucky to see Adam Brooks. Obviously, he does a lot for Defiant, and you know that was my kind of. I knew of him, but that was sort of the up close and personal, I guess, for lack of a better term. And yeah, I mean, he's just really good, isn't he? I mean, I don't know what else I can say about him. Like, he just, and the fact that, how crazy is it as a wrestling fan? Because, like I say, now it's different for me, but I guess it all kind of depends on how you see the lay of the land. I'm still always blown away about when I hear British guys getting called up to NXT and stuff like that. So, what is it like for an Australian to go all the way over and not even? I'm not saying it's even harder. Well, I guess it is kind of harder in a way, because to get scouted that way by, you know, independent UK promotions, that is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, like being in Australia, I think it's one of those few places where you really do feel cut off from the rest of the world, because you know, you're miles away. Everyone's terrified of your native wildlife.
Well, yeah, and I would be too. I'm not going to lie. All that stuff scares me. I'm a big baby, a giant one.
So you know, for years, you know, seeing any type of Australian athlete, whether it be wrestling, whether it be the football, you know, was exceedingly rare. But really, the last maybe 1 to 2 years, all of a sudden you're seeing these names popping up. Obviously, the Iconics doing a very good job of making sure everyone hates Australians.
They're weird, the Iconics, because they drive me nuts. But that's
I can't stand them.
But that's their job, right? Their job is to drive me nuts. So it's really hard to try and figure out, are they doing a good job or are they doing a really bad job? Because, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
So yeah, it's definitely hard to get noticed in any type of sport over here, just because you're so far away. But from what I've seen, especially places like New Japan have started sending scouts to watch these matches, because I think in the, you know, kind of the grand history of Australian sport, like, we do sport well. We have athletes here, and you know, that's clearly going to start, you know, having its impact on the wrestling scene, and that's why you're starting to see, you know, these people, and of course I got to include New Zealand in that. You're starting to see these athletes coming through and being noticed that, yeah, these guys can hang with the best if you know, give them the extra training that a move overseas will, you know, allow them to jump to that next level.
Yeah. And for what you can, obviously you said you're new to it and you're slowly sort of to get the promotions and the wrestlers. I mean, 2 questions really. 1, who do you think the next breakout star is going to be? And 2, do you think we can get to the point where, as like here in the UK, right, everybody wants to come fight in the UK because it's good seeing, you're going to get a good crowd. Obviously, travel is a problem, but when it comes to wrestling, I think we can kind of ignore that. Do you think the Australian scene could blow up in that sense? Because obviously someone like Will Ospreay does. He's been very vocal about that. So, you know, yeah, can it happen? Can you see it happening? Can you kind of feel that momentum growing?
Well, I definitely think we will, because, like, even I think last week there was an article on the Guardian, the Australian edition, talking about the indie wrestling scene, and it was, you know, basically one guy's advert to everyone that, you know, come and watch these guys. They're good at what they do, and you'll have a, you know, fun time. So I definitely think that, you know, the interest is there, and I think it's one of those sports that people just aren't aware it's out there and it's happening. Like the next show I'm going to it's happening at a, small little club in the city that I think I last went to watch a couple of rock bands play. And like, if you don't know about it, it's going to pass you by,
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that all of a sudden you're starting to see these ads going up. You're starting to see articles being written about these wrestlers. Obviously, Adam Brooks, Will Ospreay, getting a lot of the headlines right now. And I think that's going to trickle down. Like I said, people like me are going, well, I'm about to go see Adam Brooks for the first time. And you've got to assume that there are other people going, oh, well, I saw this guy, have a match and now he's fighting down the road from me. Well, I may as well go along and check it out. And hopefully that leads to, spotting the other wrestlers that are there and going, well, I hope this guy gets the next push and go to the next show. And they follow, they travel around the country doing all the different shows. So I think it's just at that moment where that spark's been lit. And I think it's going to be fun to be there and really see it take off.
Oh yeah, it's always better than when it's big, being part like a band that you first see that grows, right? It's just something exciting about it. And who are the standout guys that are in Australia right now that haven't kind of started flying around? Do you know of any, or have you heard of any, or are they still kind of under the radar?
I think mostly under the radar. I know that Brooks's opponent, Nova, has been champion before. I think I watched. They have a couple of matches, the AWA, up on their YouTube channel. I think there's only about five matches on there. But there's a good, I think it's a 4-way for the championship, and it's got some shenanigans with a talcum powder bottle being shot into Adam Brooks's face, which kind of takes him out of the match, and then a couple of oversells of some moves, and then some quick roll ups, and quite fun. But Nova won that one, and it'll be interesting to see whether he takes the title from Brooks straight away, or whether they kind of keep it on him and push further. It's probably sending him back to Melbourne for the next show there, and having a few more championship matches. But
as you do.
So I'm looking forward to, like I said, seeing Brooks and Nova in the flesh. I think that'll be a fun experience.
I think you'll know as well,
especially because it should be quite a small crowd based on the venue size. It's not a big place, so I think it'll be plenty of chances to get involved and have some back and forth with the wrestlers while they're up in the ring.
Absolutely, man. I think you'll know as well. I think when you've been watching wrestling that long, I think when you see a talent, you just kind of get a feeling that guy's going to do well. He's going to go on to good things. Well, I genuinely think it's really exciting, man, and definitely let me know if anything big happens out there or whatever, because it just stands to reason that Australia, or at least that part of the world, would be the next place to have an explosion, because it's pretty well positioned, given that obviously New Japan is getting big and America is America. UK is kind of lost in the middle of that, but it doesn't really matter. You can see it becoming a hotbed for wrestling, because that's how it works, right? Something blows up, then it calms down, then somewhere else does the same thing. So I can't think of anywhere else that's happening. I don't think there's anything particular going on in any other continent that I know about. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what's going on. But so let me know who comes and goes, and especially what Ospreay's doing out there. I know he's injured at the moment. He's taken some time off, but I would guess that when he's back, one of his first places is to head back over there.
Yeah, definitely. He'll probably be straight back into the Melbourne scene.
But the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, but before we start to wrap stuff up, is there were two things that came up about WWE this week. And I actually think, I may have mentioned them anyway, but now I want to talk to you specifically about them, given everything else that we've mentioned. The first is that Meltzer reports in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that when SmackDown moves to Fox in a year's time, pretty much a year at the moment, we're pretty much 12 months away from when we see that move. Fox has told WWE, again, speculative, we don't know if this is true or not, but they've told them, we want SmackDown to be less comedy and more sports, because what they want to do is they want to promote it in all their other sports programs. I think they've got some NFL as well, and they want to, be able to push it as it's a sports thing, obviously, but worked sports. Now, given everything you've mentioned, I know you're more of a character guy, but is that...
Yeah, I've got my foreheads in my hands right now.
Yeah, this is why I think that you're going to have an interesting take on it, because that came out and everybody was actually quite excited about it. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds like the WWE that I missed, maybe a bit more New Japan-y or whatever. Well, I think you've just hit the nail on the head there. But what is your reaction? I know, but just tell me anyway. What is your reaction to that? Because obviously, when it does move to Fox, they need 3.5 million viewers. I've done some research about this. That kind of seems to be their gambit. That means they need an extra 1 million viewers. That is not hard just to pull 1 million viewers from nowhere. And obviously, and on one hand, you've got people saying, yes, that's the way you get 1 million viewers, present it like that. But I'm thinking with you're all of a sudden thinking, no, that's not what pro wrestling is. You're moving too far away from what pro wrestling is. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, look, I love, I love the soap opera. That's the wrestling to me. I need the comedy moments. I need the ridiculous interactions between the crowd and the wrestlers, and I want to hear the backstage segments. I find it hard to put in too much sport element to the show. Just because I think that's where my suspension of disbelief kind of dies. Like, I can accept that someone can summon flames, but if you try to tell me that, it's a proper sport, and I don't know how they're going to do it. Like, if we've got brackets and people going up and down on ladders and challenging, it's like, that's not really what I want to see.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised given what you said, but I like that take on it because, again, most people are very receptive to that. But, I don't know. I just thought, I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. But now actually thinking about it, maybe I've got a different take on it. Simply because of what you said. Yeah, maybe it's the last thing we want to do. The other point was, it also came out, did you hear about Ronda Rousey's promo from Raw?
No.
Right,
no,
okay. So she cut a very good promo. There's a lot of good lines in it, a lot of zings. It turned out that she'd actually written it herself. There was no help from the WWE writers. And obviously that sparked a debate because that's what a lot of people want to say. Like, stop scripting the performers, let them talk like themselves. And surprise, surprise, we let somebody do that. And all of a sudden, not only did it come across real, but everyone was like, wow, that was a really, really good promo. So I just wanted your take on scripted promos, especially because you tap into that side of the industry more. But also, if it came out, through, the Twitters and the Facebooks and all of that, the WWE decided to, scrap scripted promos and focus more on, I guess the stuff that Austin and Rock used to do back in the day. Would that be something, like, even if you knew you were going to have the kind of what you had now, but you knew the promos were going to have a bit more edge to them simply because they were going to be delivered by the performers, is that enough to get you back in? Or by this point, is the model of YouTube, Twitter, websites just too good, and then you can just go kind of view the bits that sound all right on YouTube?
Look, having, putting the power back in the wrestler's hands for, controlling those segments would definitely get me more interested. Because there is nothing worse than watching a clearly scripted promo with people trying to memorize their lines. It's not fun.
I just think
it's not fun at all.
It must be so hard as well because, again, it's not, say, natural for these people. Plus, they got loads of cameras on them. Plus, they got a producer. Plus, they're probably trying to remember what their match is later as well. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, they got a lot to do. I did my degree in theatre, so I've done plenty of acting, and learning scripts can be really, really, really difficult.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
When and if it's not your primary strength coming into it, it's like having to work those up, once, twice a week. It's like, that can be a lot of effort. And like I said, when they you get the people that can pull it off, and they can have a script, but they can deliver it so well that you'd never know. And that's fine as long as it's a well written script, which is another problem.
So go on, man.
Yeah. No. I was just gonna say, like, but generally, I prefer it if it's just the wrestlers coming out, working out their own stuff that really resonates with the character that they have.
Yeah.
And giving that to us rather than what the guy upstairs thinks that character is.
Yeah, 100% right, because you can tap into that easier because it's coming from you as opposed to anybody else. On that note, and this is what we will close the show with, I'm sorry we're going to close the show talking about Impact, but they obviously did all this work shoot stuff where Austin Aries pretended that he was mad and he walked out, and now it's
I saw that.
Yeah, now what
I did see that.
What do you think of that kind of stuff then? Because that's kind of pro wrestling-y, and it's fake, but in I don't know, however you want to explain it. Like, does that make you... Because I'm not going to lie, I was going to watch Bound for Glory anyway. That brought my watching of Bound for Glory up a few days, because now I want to see what everybody's talking about, and I'm intrigued. I still think it's dumb, because I don't like it when someone actively tells me what I'm watching is fake, because that just defeats the whole object. Like, I do believe you can have two different entities where, as we're talking about it now, we can go, yes, it's not real. But then when I sit down to watch it, I can go, look, well, I have the power to pretend that it is. So for these next 3 hours, I'll do that. But when companies start to do this, and I know it killed WCW, we'll talk about that another time. But does that kind of stuff interest you to the point you think, okay, well, I'll go and watch it, or is that just nonsense all around?
Look, it was interesting in the, kind of watching a train wreck. Interesting.
Yeah, you're right. It was like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that I got told about. And I went, all right, I'm going to have to watch this. And you kind of, hand on the forehead, listening to him say what he said, do what he did. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can accept that people can, do magical things, but don't turn around in the ring and tell me that, oh, you do realize this magical thing I'm doing is completely fake.
Exactly.
If you want to be on your Twitter account and tell me that the magical thing you do is fake, well, that's fine, because by that stage, it's like I can separate that, you are playing a role on the show, but when I'm watching the show, I want you to be in character. So yeah, I don't like it. I mean, it piqued my interest, so that's the thing. It worked, but I don't think you'd want to make a habit of it. Yeah,
I agree. And I think it's difficult. If they've done it to try and get attention and viewers, because I know their viewership's been down, then I respect it and I can get behind it. But ultimately...
Yeah, it's a good idea in that sense.
Yeah, but ultimately, if you keep telling me, you idiot, what you're watching is... I'm like, all right, I'll stop then. Honestly, that is what... Did you watch WCW back in the day at all? I mean, it's difficult to get, I imagine, but...
Yeah, no, I don't think I ever saw that one at all.
I mean, when they started doing that, that's literally what they did. They'd have the commentators going, oh, I think he's gone off the script. That's not meant to happen. That was it for me. I was like, yeah, I'm not watching this anymore, because you're literally just, you're making me feel like an idiot. And don't get me wrong, wrestling is the stupidest thing in the world, but don't admit that. Let's pretend that it's not like the greatest thing ever. And I think there's a very fine line before that just goes bad. And it did go bad. It basically, not the only reason, but it was certainly a contributing factor to killing a company. Right, last question, because I do think it ties into the era when you were growing up on wrestling. Let's take all the politics out of it for now. And as I said on Wednesday's show, I am going to talk about all that once all is said and done. I want all the facts before I start. I still think it's morally terrible, but I want to go into it properly once I know everything. Obviously, Shawn Michaels is coming out of retirement to fight at Crown Jewel. Politics aside, do you have any interest to see how that's going? Or is Shawn Michaels just not a big enough draw to make you want to go back in?
No. It's that whole suspension of disbelief. For me, The Undertaker should just, disappear. He should
Magic
just
powers.
One day go.
Magic powers.
One day, I'm done. I think you actually said it on your last show that, I don't want to, I don't want him coming back and fighting over, some petty sense of respect and unfinished business.
Yeah,
it's like
that stuff is nonsense.
You're the Undertaker.
You're supposed to be dead.
Your whole character is that you're kind of above everything. It doesn't matter what's happening here. That you're still the Undertaker. You'll carry on for centuries. See, it's not a problem. So, and just seeing him now, it's like, he's nowhere near what he used to be, and it's, I have no issue with, if they're willing to pay him a bunch of money and that's what he wants to do, then go for it. But for me, I want to stay with the memory of the Undertaker, from 10 years ago. Like, that's my Undertaker. Shawn Michaels, I could watch him. I think he's still got enough in the tank that, he could put on a decent show. But yeah, I worry about the Undertaker. I'm just not sure that he can do enough to really make it a fun event to watch.
Do you worry about him in the same way I worry about Daniel Bryan? Like I'm his mum, and I'm terrified every time he takes a bump, something awful is going to happen. Still happens. Happened the other day. I was like, well, I'm such an idiot. Like, he's a grown man, but I get terrified.
Yeah, like, is Undertaker still going up on the ropes? And,
I don't think
doing that.
Is he?
Does he do that anymore?
Did he do it at Super Showdown? I don't know if he did do it. I'm going to say that he did. Yes, I think he did go up at Super Showdown. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, that worries me.
Well, yeah, honestly, man, like, I mean, look at me. What a mess I am right now because of wrestling. Ugh. And I'm like, I'm a guy that was meant to be in good shape. So,
oh, look, I know all about coughing bizarre injuries from things that you weren't expecting. So yeah, it happens.
And you always want it to be, oh yeah, I got thrown through a table, as opposed to someone hit me with a clothesline. Never mind. These things happen. There's not a lot you can do about it.
So it's all right. I turned funny and tore both quads.
Oh, not like Vince McMahon. So, you did a Vince McMahon. Did you sit in the ring like a small child though, or did you actually act like a normal human would?
Well, no. I was playing football and I felt the tear in the left.
Oh man.
And I went, maybe it's not that bad. And so my next action was to try and volley the ball first time when it got pinged back at me, and that's when my right went.
What was the recovery time on that?
So that knocked me out for about 4 months. Jeez. So I do reenactment combat, 14th century. So dressed up in the armor with the steel swords. Yeah. Hitting each other, which funnily enough, it's a lot like wrestling.
It is like,
I get asked all the time whether it's, it's like, oh, well, it's, you clearly know who's going to win. It's like, no, we don't. Like, we are fighting. We're just, it's controlled fighting. We're not actually trying to kill each other. and it's all about playing up to the crowd and storylines. Wow, I had a whole tangent here I could have gone on to now that I realize it. But anyway, that was leading up to my first show, combat, and knocked out for 3 months. So missed that first one, and I think 2 months later of kind of light combat training, and I was basically cleared about maybe a week before my first fight, and broke my finger on the second hit that I took.
Dude, you are like me. Just falling apart. You're all right now though, right?
I broke a second finger on the second day.
Oh man.
And that one's just about healed. But yeah, I got through it.
Well, you're a trooper. That's the main thing. And also, you're right. You have just unleashed a whole new thing we can talk about. And that's why you got to come back on. So we were talking. What would you call it? Reenactment fighting, right? That's the official term.
Yeah.
Right. We were talking. Yeah. Oh man, dude, there's loads in that. We'll have you back. We'll have you back on the gaming podcast, and we'll have you back to talk about wrestling and reenactment fighting. 100%. Is there anything?
Well, I'll do it after I go to this AWA show.
Done.
So I can give you the rundown on that as well.
I would love that, man. Thank you. Is there anything you want to promote or pimp out? Don't have to. It's up to you. Any Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
Okay, so may as well on Twitter. So I'm Smerbev, SMERBEV.
Done. You go follow him on there. Go talk to him about reenactment fighting. Genuinely quite interesting. I genuinely find that stuff fascinating. So you can go talk to him.
Yeah, well, it was my wrestling. It was the thing that I'd looked at for years and years and kind of ducked in and out and then finally, went, oh, look, I've got to do this. I've just got to rock up, do some fighting and prove that I've got what it takes. And now, done my first show, won some awards and, having a great time doing it.
Damn right you have, because you took a chance. Right, you're definitely coming back on next. We've got to talk about that. It's the whole thing we can do. I love stuff like that, man. Good for you. That stuff is awesome. Right, anyway, I always like to round these things up after an hour, and we're literally about to tick on over there. So, Brad, thank you very much for your time. And again, thank you so much for the support through the Patreon as well.
Yeah, no problem. I'm giving you my money instead of the WWE, but
Dude,
if they've got a problem, they can come talk to me.
That's fine with me, man. And like I said, I steal away their viewers and ups and downs. I steal away their money too. I got no problem with that whatsoever. If you'd like to come support the podcast and all my other nonsense, you can at patreon.com/Simon316. You can also come on the podcast, especially if you want to cancel the network and come give me money instead. It would make me laugh when the cows come home. But no, Brad, thank you much for your time. Thank you everyone for listening. Again, make sure you check out the episode that dropped on Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday, next Friday, as always. It's up on YouTube, youtube.com/MillerReportRules. I'm on Twitter, Instagram at SimonMiller316. If you're on iTunes, give us 5 stars and come join the Facebook group. Just search for Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. But again, thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me into your life. And I will chat to you all very again. When I say soon, it'll be next week.